and gentlemen, welcome back to the World Esports and Gaming Summit. My name is Bhavna Bhatia, and right now we're on our keynote on esports in India and regulations needed in esports ecosystem, and we'd love to make this as a conversation currently. Well, we've got with us our speaker, our esteemed speaker, Lokesh Suri, the Director, Esports Federation of India. Well, a business owner by the day and esports fanatic by night, Lokesh is literally living his dream. He's a director at Esports Federation of India, the Indian Esports Federation, and vice president at the Asian Esports Federation. With over 20 years of experience, he's an esports evangelist, hustler, and a telecom veteran. Over the years, he's been a part of the esports and across different formats and categories of games. He found the vertical in India unstructured and unexplored, which needed to be developed along professional lines, much in the same way the other forms of sport are being developed in the country. Well, with this, I'd now like to invite humbly on the stage and screen Lokesh to join me. Thank you so much, Lokesh, for giving us your valuable time and being a part of the summit. How are you doing?
Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you for having me. It's a great day for this event. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Your smile says it all, and such infectious energy, Lokesh. We're loving it. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Well, definitely, reading your profile and, the experience you carry, Lokesh. So firstly, thank you on that. It's great to have a conversation, if I may say, with a veteran in the industry of esports in India. So thank you on that. Lokesh, I'd really like to, first get your opening thoughts on esports in India and regulations needed in esports ecosystem. Like you said, being unstructured, unregulated, and, if you could just let us know what is in store for us.
Sure. Thank you, Bhavna. I think specifically when we are talking about India today, so India is definitely becoming the center for esports and gaming. And when I say gaming, I'm talking about video games here, right? So we have somewhere around 400 million online gamers, and obviously with the kind of a youth population which we have, plus the internet. So in India, internet is the cheapest in the world. There was a time wherein obviously everybody was struggling around internet bandwidth and everything, but thanks to our telcos, we've been able to achieve the mark wherein we have the cheapest internet in the world. And of course, with the highest number of youth population, India is definitely destined to become the next big powerhouse as far as video gaming and esports is concerned. And typically, I think this is a very relevant question which you asked that, what are my thoughts in the terms of the regulation? See, problem in India is that unfortunately, let's say till last year or so, people were thinking that esports is if you play Teen Patti, Rummy, poker, fantasy, and to an extent that even if you're playing casual video games, that is also esports. And that is where whole of the machinery was kind of confused, even the media, even the, when we talk about, the government and everything. And so it took us some time, and not only us, but a lot of people from the esports industry contributed in the terms of, first clearing out the definitions and the understanding. And it's very unfortunate that this thing was happening only in India. Whereas if supposedly if we look at, let's say, reports of, gaming per se of America, Korea, China. So, the kind of stats which they include only talk about video games, nowhere they're talking about, things like Teen Patti, Rummy, fantasy, and things like that. But, very happy that, slowly and gradually. So now we are in a stage that if you today go and talk to largely set of, relevant people within India, so they know the difference between esports, casual video gaming, and, these iGaming kind of apps, which is, Teen Patti, Rummy, and things like that. So I think we are headed towards the right direction, but again, India is a massive country, right? We are talking about, 1 billion plus population and the whole machinery, the government machinery and everything. But things have started moving, and very happy to say that, things are moving in the positive direction as far as the esports is concerned. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Lokesh, I'm sure under your leadership, it's definitely going to do more wonders. And we're looking forward for, much more conversations ahead on that. So, let me jump and dive into one of our other questions, which I have for you, Lokesh, is that, you've been involved with the federations for quite some time and have been at the forefront of esports to be included in Olympics, Asian Games, etc. Why do you think esports should move towards the sports framework? And I'm sure this question's, in the minds of all who are viewing us today. So we'd love to know your thoughts on that.
See, when we talk about esports, right, by definition, when you say it's esports, so we are anyway just saying that it's a sport, right? So by virtue of its definition, it has to, it had to move in that sports kind of framework or those definitions one day. And the good news is that today, the apex body for sports, which is International Olympic Committee, they have also recognized esports as a sport. And it was quite amazing that IOC in such a short span of time they declared esports as a sport. And this year, before start of Olympics, they did a virtual Olympic series. And of course, esports is now part of Asian Indoor Games and Asian Games 2022. So that thing has moved very fast. So one of a very and obviously, we as ESFI and me personally, have faced a lot of slack from the committee in the terms that, why should esports come under that, sports framework? So when we look at, esports currently, largely when we look at esports world over also, it is like a free flow kind of a thing. It's a wild west. You want to do something in esports, you go ahead and do it. A lot of unstructured, whatever is happening, there is so much of unstructured things which happen, right? Which includes, events happening, teams getting formulated and things like that, So when we look at, so if it is a sport, it has to be run properly the way any other sport moves. So that is one reason why, and we saw this coming in way back in 2014. Right. So people used to laugh at us when we used to go and talk to people that, okay, so esports is a sport, it should be included. And thankfully, esports was a demonstration title since 2007, Macau Asian Indoor Games. And people used to ask, okay, show us the proof whether esports is included. People used to, so it was a complete mindset change. So it took us a long journey to reach here where everybody, agrees, largely the set of people agree that esports is a sport. So while having said so, I think it is important that, if we run esports the way any other sports is being run today, so there are a lot of advantages. One is that it's a sports ultimately. The sports largely is driven through sponsorships, right? In our sport, you typically would not charge an entry fee or things like that. There may be a little bit of component, again, depending upon the game developer and things like that. But largely, the revenues which come in into esports is through sponsorships and the media rights or your streaming licensing and things like that. Now, when you do a comparison, so then if, let's say, esports is not part of that sports structure, it is just like any ordinary event. So then typically when as a event owner or an IP owner, when you go and talk to a sponsor, you are actually competing against certain set of other events. This could be a music event, it could be rock and show or things like that. But when esports, when you go and take it as a sport, so then typically you would be competing against, let's say, other set of sports. In India, of course, cricket is the biggest competitor for everything which happens here. But typically, then the advantage is that, our government, and I'm specifically talking from an India perspective, that, government gives certain set of, tax subsidies, tax rebates and things like that. If you are spending certain set of money in the terms of, let's say, contributing towards the growth of a sport. So one thing is that increases the money inflow, right? And so in an event, you go and raise a sponsorship purely from a sports, from an event perspective. But when we talk from a sports perspective, then we are not only generating or getting monies, not only from an event perspective, but then we have to similarly look at, the growth and training of our athletes to popularize that particular sport. And if it is an event, then it is restricted to certain set of, let's say, if you talk about, let's say, unfortunately, PUBG in India is banned, but let's talk about, I'll just use a PUBG as a reference for easy understanding. Let's say if there's an event which is happening for PUBG, right? So there is a small circle of people, which will come and participate, or, viewership numbers. But the moment you include it, as a sports side of it, then you increase the circle of influence also. A lot of people will get involved. So that is the reason. Largely, these are a couple of things, and there's no rocket science here that why esports should not be included. By definition, it is a sport; it has to be done. And then better management of things, developing training centers, player growth, training, coaching, and we are talking about a full-fledged industry here: the lawyers, the legal, marketing, and things like that. Yeah.
Right. It's exciting to hear what all you said, Lokesh, and definitely increasing the periphery of exposure, in terms of esports will definitely further the cause of what you're doing and what the country would want. So thank you on that, Lokesh. Well, I'm going to be moving from, this aspect to which is the player's perspective. I'd like to know, Lokesh, how will this sports framework help them? Like, you definitely said it's going to become a full-fledged industry. You're looking at involving different aspects of how, industry works. So from a player's perspective, could you throw a light?
I think this is very important because, for esports, the players are the key, right? And thanks to our esports community that, at whatever capacity and whatever levels, they have actually brought our sport to a level wherein, today, obviously this conference is happening, governments are taking notice of it, somebody like IOC, brands like Audi, Mercedes, MasterCard, Visa, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and so forth, they are getting involved into it. Now, for somebody, it's very important to understand who is our esports athlete, right? Our esports athletes are people from, let's say, 13 to, let's say, 21, 22-year old, right? Because ultimately, the shelf life of our esports athlete is very short. Our game is completely based upon responses. How fast can you move? How fast can you think? And things like that. Now, in our case, because when we look at, and then let's do a comparison of our esports athlete with any other traditional sport. All the professionals, whether you talk about cricket, football, these are the people who are like, let's say, 22 above. Obviously, Sachin Tendulkar was an exception, and exceptions are always there, right? But largely, you see that these are the people who have, let's say, graduated or are post-graduated. They have kind of, finished up their studies, and they reach a particular set of maturity in their life. In our case, our athletes are the time wherein, this is typically the time for these guys to study, right? And I always say this to, whenever we have these discussions with our communities, never compromise with your studies. Now, for this player, for our esports athlete who spent his crucial time when, his peers were, again, preparing to become a doctors or engineers or, trying hard to get into IITs and IIMs, our esports athlete is compromising and sacrificing that particular part, and let's say, preparing for, whatever esports championships happen and things like that. Now, in the current schema of things, after some time, our esports athlete is practically left with nothing. And there is not, it's not, obviously, from an India perspective, let's say, there are 320 or 300 million esports enthusiasts, but not all of them are actually making decent set of money wherein they can actually say that, okay, so I've built my career, I don't want to do anything. But there are, again, out of this 300 million, there may be like, lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh. Well, I'm saying, worst case scenario, let's even look at 1 million, which is a very high number, but let's say, right? But then still there are 299 million esports enthusiasts who would be left with nothing. Right. So that is where, it's important for our players to understand that, it's important that, we quickly understand this thing, because if tomorrow you win a medal for the country, right? So there are, a lot of benefits which you get, the government will support you. And, and thanks to, we created a small, clip and, so collage and things wherein, now there's a lot of money in esports also, but can you get the glory of winning a medal for your country? Right. So Neeraj Chopra, his parents were not able to meet him. So Neeraj Chopra, for people who don't know who Neeraj Chopra is, so Neeraj Chopra is an Indian Olympian. He won gold for India in javelin, right? So, for him, when he was there at the airport, and obviously his parents couldn't visit. So you might win, let's say you might win the Dota, the T1 International with 40 million prize pool and everything. but you might not have all that, just go, whole of that nation, which will come to receive you at the airport. But if you win a medal for your country, that is where you find you will have that whole of the nation coming and, at the airport to receive you. So that's the pride. So nothing can beat the pride to play for your country. And then obviously country supports you.
Right.
Neeraj Chopra, obviously he comes from a very humble background, and he, hired a private jet, took his parents around, he was there on Kaun Banega Crorepati, which is a Indian version of, wants to become a millionaire or something like that, right? So, so there's a lot of fame and glory, and nothing can beat that fame and glory when you win a medal for your country. So that is the reason, so, and then obviously, there are, player rights, player training, coaching, their jobs and everything, all those things will fall in shape, if, tomorrow, obviously in our case, obviously our government is yet to recognize esports as a sport, but the day that thing happens, so whenever you win a medal, so that is the kind of a glory and fame we are talking about. So hence it's important, and obviously a lot of things, and who would not want to have that?
Right.
So that is the biggest benefit which our players would get. Obviously, a lot of protection comes in, their trainings, coaching, and things like that.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant point right there, Lokesh, in terms of what players can, from their perspective. And, I'd like to go to the next question, Lokesh, and another thing. Unlike any sports, video games are the IPs of private for-profit organizations. How difficult it will be to bring them on board. So we're looking at collaborating on a very different level, right? So if you could, just share your point of view on the same.
I think, yeah, so absolutely. So that is one big difference which clearly differentiates esports, with the traditional sports, because cricket, nobody owns cricket, right? So if tomorrow if you and me want to decide to play, let's say, badminton, nobody can stop us.
Right.
But yeah, so when we talk about video games, video game is actually the base on which esports happens, right? So and obviously, a lot of people think that, this is a big hurdle, the game developers would not support, or game developers or game publishers would not support. But I think, our experience has been, and that's what we've been seeing all across, whether it was Asian Games or upcoming Asian Games or Olympics for that matter. The game developers are very forward, forward looking, and they're very helpful in these kind of things, because for them also, see, the biggest problem world over is that as a parent, you don't want your children to spend much time playing video games, right? So that is in itself, let's say if I own a private company, let's say, right, I build a mobile game. So one of the biggest bottleneck which I see for growth of my video game is that, there is no parental support. But tomorrow, let's say, esports is getting included into, obviously it's been included into Asian Games, and let's say we have medal events for esports in Olympics also. So this will also strengthen my say. So as a business owner, I'll say absolutely it's helping my business grow. Why would I, as a business owner, would not support this kind of a cause? Because it is kind of legitimizing my video game. So then my strategy would be either I would have some games which are already multiplayer or esports, or I will start, or obviously, a feedback to, other game developers is to start working on esports titles, basically, build video games which have esports capabilities and things like that. So as a video game developer, it's a win-win situation. And in this case, the best thing is that, I need not to spend any marketing budgets. People are any which ways, and that's what's happening. And that is one big reason why game developers support, event organizers and the community, that guys, go ahead and, keep on creating, events and, things like that. And this also increases shelf life. See, when you look at mobile, typically mobile video game, if 6-7 months, typically a mobile game would die out. You have to think of some other this thing. But if you are using esports as a tool to kind of increase the shelf life, why not? It also helps me in saving my money, and I'm continue making money through in-app purchases or streaming and things like that. So the game developers are very, forthcoming in the terms of helping out, us, or let's say other event organizers.
Right. Well, that's a great perspective right there. Lokesh, I'm going to go on to the next question, being an administrator is a very tiring responsibility, if I may say. Okay, sure. But we always find you full of energy and enthusiasm. Now, what's the secret of that calm and the continuous smile which you're carrying on the screen today. We'd love to know after all the responsibility you carry.
So yes, no doubt, I will not shy away from saying that, being an administrator is a completely thankless job. People don't at times, see the bigger picture. Not only us, but, other set of federations, other set of administrators do face a lot of flack. People would come up, they'll come up with all their various thoughts of acquisitions and things like that. But see, I think patience is the key here. And this is something which I always, share it with our community also, when people come and say that when they stream, only one or two people come or at a time. So you need to be patient, right? So I believe that, till the time your conscience is clear and you're passionate about what you're doing, right? Don't shy away. People will come, people will say whatnot, and be focused and just enjoy that journey. And thankfully, in my case, with the telecom background, I've always wanted to be a gamer per se, enjoyed gaming. And then this gave me an opportunity to kind of, so it's something, which you say that, I don't work, I play. So for me, that's the part. And yes, you just need to ignore the extra noise which happens all around. Just be focused, enjoy your life, be passionate, and just go ahead.
That's a great advice right there, for everyone who's in the space and even otherwise, to just be focused and ignore the noise around. Yeah. On that note, Lokesh, I'm going to go on to the next question. By starting to break its own boundaries, esport has truly been on a rise. What do you feel are the significant breakthroughs in India's esports sphere?
I think the biggest breakthrough was Asian Games 2018.
Right.
Wherein where esports was included as a demonstration title, and thanks to our esports athlete Tirth, who got the bronze for the country, and Karan Magnani, he was fourth for a title called Clash Royale. See, esports is not new to the world, and it is not new to India too, right? It's been there in the country for like 20-25 years, right? There have been certain set of cases wherein our teams were able to reach at, let's say, global finals and things like that, but never has been a case wherein we were able to win a medal per se. And I think this medal which Tirth got for the country built that confidence. See, why in India we love cricket, right? So cricket is actually the next religion in India. Because cricket, we are the kings of cricket, right? And thanks to that World Cup win with Kapil Dev being captain and things like that. So that built on that confidence, that yes, we can win medals, right? We can be the world champions. See, sports is always about, there's a saying in Hindi, I'm just taking that liberty of saying so, is that man ke hare har, man ke jeete jeet. So if you think that you're going to lose, or even if you have an iota of thought that you might lose, the chances, 100% chances that you will lose. Right. But if you're destined, if you're, convince yourself that no, you're playing this to win, and then obviously you'll win. So that kind of a confidence, our players, and I as I said, I keep on meeting with a lot of players, I don't see that there is any kind of talent shortage in India. I think the only thing we're going to be missing is the skill. They know the trade, but there's somewhere the skill and the confidence is missing. Somewhere we miss out on that confidence. So I think that has been a biggest breakthrough, as far as the Indian esports is concerned. And then simultaneously, of course, the internet, smartphones, mobile games, mobile esports titles coming into India. That is where, so there was a time wherein, whenever, these esports championship used to happen, maybe 1,000 people were watching and things like that. But now is the time, thanks to mobile esports title, that, whenever such kind of streaming happening, some events happening, you find that, there are lakhs and millions of people who are simultaneously watching that thing. So I think these are a couple of things which have kind of, completely transformed the number. The number have zooped up like anything. So yeah, that's pretty much, yeah.
No, absolutely, Lokesh. What you said, removing the iota of doubt also in, the player's mind is so integral when it comes to, ultimately aiming for those medals. So a great pointer to note right there, Lokesh. With this, Lokesh, I'll take the liberty of asking you the final question in interest of time. We'd love the conversation to continue, but in interest of time, we're going to the final question. So Lokesh, in the wake of strong demand and increasing monetization opportunities, what kind of significant opportunities are in store future of the Indian gaming industry, and how do you think we can leverage that?
So my personal dream is that, while we talk about, let's say, games like, Dota, CSGO, or BGMI, FIFA, Clash Royale, all these games are, let's say, coming from outside the country, and we all are playing those games, right? And that is where I see a big opportunity for Indian game developers is to make a video game which is esports specific and grow it to an extent. And whatever help, as a federation, such kind of game developers need, will be very happy to provide that. And I really want rest of the world to play on those esports game titles. And that is where the opportunity is, right? So we should, and as I said, that India never had any dearth of talent, whether it was in the terms of game development or in the terms of the players. So there is enough opportunity. And from the player side of it, I may not be the best player, but then streaming, I think, is a good opportunity. If you're a lawyer, if you have knack for, let's say, esports or video game per se, you can kind of niche out marketing. We go and talk to so many of the marketing agencies. Somewhere, we see that unfortunately there are not many people within their organization who understand esports or video gaming. And that is, I think, VCs. I think that currently in India, the problem with the VCs is that they know there's something happening. They want to get involved, but just because within their company they don't have somebody, a youngster who's been playing BGMI or FIFA and things like that. That is where I think there are enough opportunities available. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And definitely India is a land of opportunities. And I'm sure that, with what you spoke, it's going to thrive, definitely. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lokesh. Any feedback on the conversation, anything you would like to say towards the end before we part our conversation today?
No, I think thanks, TESSCON, for having us. I think it's important that, but again, I'm saying that, India is that next big esports or a video game market. Anybody listening to me, please get involved, have a foot in the door, and then evolve. So don't think too much, get into action, start investing into India.
Absolutely. Thank you. So on that note, I'd really like to humbly thank you, Lokesh, for joining.